Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wee Ood, an unofficial Doctor Who podcast watch along extravaganza. I am your host, Cameron, and I'm here with my co host, Ben. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing good. Last night we watched Babe, Pig in the City, and that was a blast.
George Miller. What a man.
What a man. Literally all I've seen from him is Happy Feet and now Babe, so I should really check out Mad Max.
You
I
really
bet it's
should. We're,
good.
we're, we're recording this like the week before Furiosa came out.
Yes,
So you got to watch it so you can see Furiosa on the big screen.
I know.
But right now, you're currently watching the Planet of the Apes movies. How's that journey been going, Ben?
Pretty good. I finished Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and because you know me, I am just like with Doctor Who, I gotta start season 1, episode 1. I gotta start with the very first Planet of the Apes movies, even though the new ones are completely unrelated. Gotta start at the beginning. I finished Battle like a week ago. Gonna watch the Tim Burton one, which should be really good. But yeah.
On this week's episode, we're not going to be discussing Planet of the Apes. We're going to be discussing a whole different type of monster. Ooh, it's a Carnival of
Ooh.
Monsters we're discussing this week. Directed by Barry Letts, who of course is the producer of the show at this point. Written by Robert Holmes, who already wrote a lot of the classics for the Third Doctor, and will go on to be the script editor for the Fourth Doctor for the first three seasons. And this premiered starting in January 27th, 1973, and ended the February 17th, 1973. It had a high viewing rate of 9.5 for episode one. 9.5 million viewers watched Carnival of
That's pretty
Monsters.
good.
Oh, yeah. Uh, yeah. So, Ben, let's get right into it. What did you think of Carnival of Monsters?
It was pretty good. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't know. It was one I loved that like initial mystery in like the first episode
Oh,
where
yeah.
you have no idea what's going on. And, it's cut in between the carnies and the doctor and how are these two things related? Yeah. And then it's revealed and it's slightly less interesting, but the way they play with size is super cool. Yeah. It's pretty good, I would say, overall. It's kind of one that, I watched it and I liked it and then it was over. I don't feel like I have a lot of, like, complex thoughts about it, if you know what I mean. What did you think?
I saw this story before. I
Yeah,
watched it when I like last year. I think I would have had the Blu-ray for a couple of months by that point. But I watched it because I was like one night I was in the mood for classic Doctor Who. And I watched it. Always wanted to watch this because I knew that this one was a classic written by Robert Holmes. Um, and I loved it when I watched it the first time. I extremely loved the whole idea of the miniscope and that, like you said, that first part when they're on the ship and they're kind of in that time loop
yeah,
element. I thought that was great. And I liked the way that it was structured, that having the cutting from that to the alien planet stuff, I thought really helped with the pacing. But and I felt like on my rewatch, I thought the same things that it's a really good story. I'm my opinion. I love the idea of the miniscope. Love the a lot. I think the story is just jam packed with a lot of great ideas. It's one of those great Doctor Who
yeah.
episodes where Robert Holmes just has like 20 ideas and he just fits them all into this one story. But
Yeah, it's a tight
yeah,
four-parter.
but I feel like there's some bits of it that it kind of does get dragged down because of just production issues. Just like I think that once we get inside of the miniscope and we get in between the worlds, I will say the habitats, whatever will describe them. Um,
Like, all the, like,
yeah,
circuits and
that
stuff.
set is just awful, and it's kind of just visually very boring. So when we get to that stuff, it kind of slows down, and then like it slows. That stuff also slowed down by the fact that the Doctor is kind of not under control at that point. So we're just kind of just running from one point to the other, and it's just like, what are we doing here? And then once, especially in part 4, when the doctor escapes that area and we're just stuck with Joe in the inside the box kinda lacks any momentum. You kinda just in the box is
Yeah.
just kinda like, "Alright, we'll just cut to the doctor." The doctor is the one that's gonna be able to save the day. Nothing's gonna happen beside the box that's gonna be, like, exciting to watch. But I say that, I love this story. I think this is a
Yeah.
very strong story. Like you mentioned, part 1 is one of the best Pertwee first Potters, I would say. I think that another, positive for this story, the amount of not the amount, but they use the location, on location stuff really well in this story. Doctor Who, of course, very much in studio show.
Mhm.
And they went outside the studio for a lot of the ship stuff once we're on like the deck of the ship. And then they used it, of course, when we get to the Jurassic habitat, and all that stuff
Mhm.
is gorgeous looking. Especially on the Blu-ray, it looks very good. But yeah, that's like my general thoughts. Is there anything that you want to piggyback on that I said?
As it kinda goes on, when the once the doctor's out, Joe isn't left with a whole lot to do. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, so let's start off with talking about the core premise of this story, which of course is the miniscope.
Yes.
Um, I think that it's a great idea for a Doctor Who story.
Absolutely, yeah.
Having this zoo in a box, kind of in a way. It's great. It's a great idea to start the story. Like we talked about, part one so great because it's starting the Doctor and that inside of the box, inside the machine. So he has to discover it, and I think it's a great use of mystery, but also the viewer is a step ahead of the Doctor, of course, because the viewer knows that he's inside the miniscope. Um, and I think that stuff is great. What did you think of the miniscope?
Yeah, it's a super awesome concept. Makes total logical sense that something like that would exist. Um, yeah, just a really cool idea. Much more interesting kind of okay. Have you seen Planet of the Giants?
I've not.
Okay. In the second season of Doctor Who, they are miniature. There's a Planet of the Giants story where the Doctor and Co become inexplicably miniaturized. Uh, and even especially back then, the budget was incredibly limiting. And I think the way they did it with this story made it work a lot better as like a miniaturization story.
And of course, like one of the big things about it is having that time loop mechanic. I think that it was very smart to start off with like the humans, and we got to see that like how would you describe it? Kind of machine like in a way. It kind of feels like a AI in a video game. That they will
Yeah,
like they
real
just
like
get like reset.
Oblivion NPC behavior.
Yeah. I love that stuff. And I love that scene. Of course, I think it's in part two that he changes the dials to make them a little bit more hostile.
Hmm.
um, which is something that I kind of think is a kind of a plot hole in a way because it's like, all right, you have this machine that you can control these people. So why don't you just like use the machine just to like to make the Drashigs not like crazy, and like go after like inside the machine and stuff. You could have just like sedate them.
Presumably it's because the Drashigs are not a intelligent life form, like the same way that the master couldn't
Yeah.
hypnotize a dog and have the dog serve him. Drashigs are just going on pure instinct, following the doctor's scent. They can't really be controlled compared to a human who has thoughts and feelings that can be manipulated.
Do you think that's why Qui-Gon's Jedi mind tricks did not work on Watto and Star Wars: Phantom Menace?
Probably, probably.
But, like, that stuff I extremely love. I love that moment in the episode also when, they can't see, like, that hatch that goes inside the machine. I think that's a really
Oh,
great,
yeah.
like, kind of like we said, AI behavior inside of a video game that they can't see something that the Doctor and Joe can obviously see. I think that's a little great
Mhm.
moment. Um, of course, the one of the people that are stuck inside that ship is an actor called Ian Motter. He
Which one
was
was he?
the character name was John Andrews. John Andrews was like the captain. I think he was the captain. He was the one that was trying to shoot the Doctor, basically. I'll send you a picture. But I would be playing Harry Sullivan in the fourth Doctor's era, and of course,
Oh, yeah, no. That's that
yeah,
that main kind of
no,
sailor guy. I don't think he's the
but he's like
captain.
the guy who boxed the Doctor.
There's yes. So that
Yeah,
actor
which he
becomes
was
the
previously
companion.
was considered for the
Interesting.
role of Mike Yates. So they used him here, and then they must have liked him here enough that they decided to use him as a companion. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's great. Um, I love all that stuff inside the ship in the first two pots, and then we leave the ship, and then we meet we see,
Go.
well, first before we meet the Drashigs, we see the circuit board, which I already mentioned. Like I thought that set was kind of boring and was kind of lacking in it was lacking in visual uh stimulus. Like how would you describe that set
Mhm.
then?
Uh, it's just like a bunch of pipes in a dark
But
room,
like,
catwalks,
did you find it
and
interesting at all?
just noisy, just bunch of garbage. Um, I actually like the day before I watched it, that had that part. I watched a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode in season six, One Little Ship, where they're in a ship that gets miniaturized and they have to repair a circuit that is normal size. So they beam in and are inside a circuit. And I will say, even though that's like the 90s at that point, Doctor Who did it better. It's more visually interesting.
Just think about the budget difference.
Yeah,
What was I gonna say? But then, of
crazy.
course, we get out of there, and then we get to see the Drashigs.
Yes. What did you think of the Drashigs?
I love the design of the Drashigs. The design I think is very iconic.
Hmm.
It's a great use of the CSO, the color separation.
Yeah,
It
to
looks
make
kind of
these.
bad, but it has a charm to it that I really much love.
Yeah. I
Um,
wish they did more stuff with like, is it a puppet?
yeah, it's a puppet.
I wish they did more stuff with that because it looked kind of cool. Like bad, but in a kind of good kind of way.
I'm not gonna have you guess the action figures this episode, but so we got a third Doctor, I believe, I think. But the main thing for the story, of course, they made a puppet, a hand puppet Drashig, which I think is just very cool that they made a Drashig hand puppet thing.
Oh, it looks so silly.
But like you could imagine some guy that was like loved the Drashig as a kid, picking that up as a full grown adult, being like, I finally got my my Drashig toy.
Hmm. Oh, look at
But
this, Cam. The iconic enemies, an Auton, an Omega, and a Drashig. Those are the three big
oh yeah.
ones.
Oh yeah. I think if I remember correctly, because I watched the behind the scenes doc when I watched it a year ago. I did not have time to watch it for this week's episode, but I think part of the reason why that puppet actually looks pretty good, I think they used like a canine skull, which is why the teeth
Oh,
on the Drashig look so real because it actually is just real like dog teeth,
yeah,
and you can kind of see that it is like dog teeth, like a little mini dog.
cool.
But, no, I love the Drashigs. What did you think of them, Ben?
Oh yeah, super super cool design. Uh, kind of wish they had like two sound bites of a scream, not just the one that they just repeated continuously. But it was a cool kind of primal yell, very menacing. And when it pops out into the real world, that's a cool moment.
It's kinda something I don't get about this story is the use of they have in, on that previous world/habitat, like, they have, like, this sea dinosaur creature.
Hmm.
Kinda wish they went with something else for that because it's kinda very similar looking to the Drashig.
Is it a completely unrelated giant puppet monster?
Yeah, it's a place I'm not gonna even be able to pronounce that.
Oh, like a plesiosaur?
Plesiosaur, that's what it is. The doctor mentions that,
That's right.
um, which is why it's like, but you kinda forget about it at a point, or you kinda think, like you said, like, you kinda think, "Oh, is that a Drashig?" And, like, the
Interesting.
creature, when you look at it, they definitely I'll send a picture to you right now, like,
I'm looking at
it
it,
definitely
yeah.
looks like they use the same teeth as the Drashig, which doesn't help when you're thinking back of, is that a different creature or is that the same creature? But yeah, it's kinda I wish that they just went with the Drashig there, but then, I think the Drashigs are probably too powerful that if the Drashigs were with in that but I don't know, maybe you could say the Drashigs, like, kinda get rebooted too after a certain time, so that's, like, why they don't destroy the ship. I have no fucking idea.
I don't know.
Who the fuck knows? But, Barry Letts named this story as one of his favorite of Robert Holmes' contribution to the show. He particularly thought that the Drashigs was one of the best monsters in the series, which
Mhm.
I totally agree with. That they did a really good job with the designs of the Drashigs.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. Okay. So
What do you
we discussed the Drashigs now. So we discussed inside the miniscope. What else is there to talk
should
about?
we talk about the whole other half of the
Yeah.
story outside the miniscope?
Inside the
What about the carnies?
inside when we get to the planet of I wrote it down. What is the planet's name?
Interminor?
Yes, Inner Minor. Ben, what did you think of Inter Minor?
It's another kind of gray place with gray people. Um, they are kind of funny in a stupid way,
Yeah.
though. They like scheming, but they're not very bright.
I love the costumes for them too. I think that the gray makeup with the big
Oh,
eyebrows.
oh yeah.
Sadly kind of is let down in some areas when you can see the balding cap.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But they don't have the balding cap or visible, I think they look great. And the show really is able to get a convincing alien like looking creature, not creature, but like alien humanoid creature.
Hmm.
Um, and then
What about the functionaries?
and then we meet, of course, the Connie folk of Vorg and what is her name? Uh,
That's a good question.
Sherna.
Sherna.
Who? Fun fact: Sherna was the actress Cheryl Hall auditioned for Joe, but didn't get it. And Barry Letts promised her, "Hey, I'll reuse you. Not reuse you, but I'll use you at some point." And he was a man to his word, and he used her. which you can kind of see that she you could see just like by looking at her that she has like the look of a Doctor Who companion,
Yeah.
especially if they
She could have been
like
Joe.
the casting call for Joe would have called for someone that looking like her.
Yeah. Yeah, similar kinda person.
Yeah, and then like
I'm glad it was Katie
oh yeah,
Manning, though.
Katie has that that charm to her that makes Joe Grant great. If you gave Katie Manning's like lines to another actress, Joe Grant would not be as memorable and as great of a character.
No way.
She puts a lot of herself into that role that makes the character great. We haven't got to the moment in Doctor Who where the writers are able to give the companions enough material to carry it. But anyways, we I already discussed VU's actor before with Ian
Mhm.
Mater, but there's another one in the story. Um, we have Michael Wisher plays the character of Calic, who Michael Wisher will go on to play, of course, Davros in Genesis of the Daleks, and already beforehand was the news anchor on in Ambassadors of Death, and he was somewhere else. What was Michael Wisher before, Ben?
He was one of the guys that ran the factory in Terror of the
Yes.
Autons.
So we'll get used to we'll see him again. I think we'll see him again this season because I think he is one of the verses of the Daleks in Planet of the Daleks. So that's fun. But what did you think of? Okay, we now have to talk about the Connie folk. We have we kind of went on a little diversion there,
Little tangent,
but
yeah.
we have the two Connie folk. So let's first talk about Vorg. What did you think of Vorg in the performance that the actor Leslie Leslie Dyer Dyer Leslie Dyer gives as work. Dwyer,
Dwyer,
that's what the
maybe?
fucking that's how you pronounce the last name. What did you think of the performance that Leslie Dwyer gives as work?
He's really good. Really honed in on the kinda how do I describe him? Kinda lovable incompetence.
Yeah, and also like has that showmanship about him.
Yeah, he's a very grand kinda guy.
What did you think of one of the most memorable things about him is the costume, where they just give him a bunch of
Oh,
circles.
yeah, both their costumes are they're something.
I love them. It's very
Yeah,
campy Doctor Who energy. Something that it feels very much like more 80s classic Doctor Who than 70s.
mhm.
But I think like it is one of those things that like that uniform, not uniform, but like that stuff would never be in like another science fiction show. That's very much a Doctor Who looking costume.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good contrast for the people of
Oh, the
Interminor.
inner minor. That's kinda dull species with dull looks
Yeah.
compared to these flamboyant, extravagant entertainers.
With just
That
like
that dichotomy is really
with like
good.
just that mirage of just color on them.
Yes.
Um no, I think that stuff's great. It's kind of just one of those things that somewhere at times the pacing it kind of lets it down. It's a lot of like, all right, shut the machine down, and then or it's like, oh, all right, like it gets kind of repetitive at a point when we cuts back to Interminor
Yeah.
and the people. There is some political stuff that goes on after at a point where there's a little bit of a
There's like a attempted
yeah,
coup, and
which was
I don't
actually
know.
that is something that a attempted overthrow of President Zob. That was a Terrence Dicks contribution. Yeah, of course, he's the script editor. He was
Mhm.
concerned that the story was the way that it was originally made. That it needed another that it needed another basically threat in the on that planet, which makes sense. You kind of at a point you kind of need that other thing, but I don't know if it fully.
Mhm.
It kind of does feel like an addition that isn't really fully fleshed out.
Yeah. I the politics, the political aspect of Inner Minor, I couldn't really bring myself to care about.
Yeah, I love the idea that they are like scared of the bacteria that's inside the creatures that's inside the machine. I love that idea. But like when we
Mhm.
get to the coup stuff, I don't care about it. And I think it needs to be further developed. Um
Yeah.
and it's one of those things like we mentioned, like I just said that you can tell that's an addition since it's not really the story doesn't really linger on it that much. It kind of forgets about it at a point.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes I gotta let the Drashigs out so that I can then take over in the chaos.
Yeah.
Or no, it'll be blamed on the president, and we can unite the people against the president because he's so incompetent. Because he couldn't even deal with the Drashigs. Or something like that. I don't know. I don't really care.
I do love at a point in this story when Joe is, even though it kind of gets repetitive after the towards the later part of the story when Joe is kind of just keeps on getting kidnapped.
That was kind of funny though.
But I think they gave Katie a lot of great lines of just her acknowledging that it is repetitive. It's just like, oh, here we go
Here we go
again,
again.
and just like, oh, like just trying to convince them. It's like, hey, this is repetitive. It's like you break this, come on, and just
Yeah.
not being able to. There's a little bit of a glimpse of that one character that the other woman in the story.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that it works giving Katie jokes, even though it is repetitive, and it is self-aware enough that
Uh,
knowing that it is repetitive.
what do you think of the lateral thinking bit in episode 3?
I'm having a blank. What was that moment? I just watched it too.
The doctor and Joe are in the circuits. They're in front of a big hole, and they said they need to get down that because the Drashigs are right behind them. And so the doctor is like saying, "Okay, we got to use lateral thinking. We can't go forward and we can't go backwards. So we need to come up with another solution." And Joe's like, "Oh, let's go sideways."
Yeah,
Or, "Oh, you're saying we should go sideways." And the doctor's like, "Oh, I didn't mean it quite that literally." Or something
yeah.
like I'm explaining it
No, but
poorly,
that's when they
but you
get
remember that.
that's when the whole rope thing comes in that we have to go to the
Yeah.
ship habitat place
I
and
thought it
the
was
ship.
a funny moment of her
Yeah.
taking things literally
Um,
and like,
but I think it's kind of clever enough that we have to go back. We have to reuse these sets to go back to get the rope. Um,
yeah, almost kind of wish we had more. We went to more areas of the miniscope.
but like
We get little glimpses of like there's Ogron somewhere, there's Cybermen somewhere.
which of course that would be like what the new series version of this would be. It would be like a pretty like chaotic. Like they would go to one planet for like 1 second, and they would have the budget to be able to do that new set and the new
Yeah,
characters, and then they would
it
just
would be
like
like a best of
yeah,
kind of thing.
or even
Rapid
just a
fire.
rapid fire of different locations, new people, and like it would be like there would be it would be less circuit rooms and more like going from location to location to location, going to habitat to habitat.
Yeah,
But of course, classic Doctor Who, they
go
can't.
to a scale model of Scaro or something.
But of course, they can't afford that. They can only afford
No,
they can afford the set of Interminer, and they can afford the circuit set, and then the ship sets. So we have to reuse the ship sets.
and we found a swamp somewhere we can go to.
Yeah. And we can build like a cave set.
Yep.
Okay, Ben.
All right. Anything else we should
I have nothing left
discuss?
except for cliffhangers.
Yeah, let's do the
So
cliffhangers.
pot one's cliffhanger. I think it's the best cliffhanger of the lot. The
Absolutely.
hand comes down to grab the TARDIS. It is a fantastic cliffhanger. Really great use of special effects with the CSO.
Yeah.
Still holds
And
up.
at that point, we still have we still don't know that the doctor and Joe were small.
Yeah.
So it's like, What the fuck?
It's fantastic. Part two's cliffhanger is we see the Drashics for the first time.
Yes.
Or not the dra for the first time. The Doctor and Joe see the Drashics for the first time. And then part three, the Doctor comes out of the machine, which
And
was
he's little tiny.
which
Itty
is
bitty bitty.
a fun
Tiny.
fact was not supposed to be the cliffhanger.
Oh, did they run
Um,
out of time or something?
so they had to thin it out. So they originally intended the show to include the Doctor plummeting and apparently to his death, and then it would like come out of the machine. But then it was just cut and then replaced with him just leaving the miniscope, which I think it works as a cliffhanger.
Mhm.
Even though I kind of now see that like that wouldn't be the most exciting thing in the world to keep you like it's not like a death. It's not like a someone in peril. It's just like oh he's finally out now.
Yes.
But I think it works
I
as a
guess will
cliffhanger.
he grow? Is or will he stay little?
No, but we
I
already
don't know.
established.
Yeah.
I think it works more that we just spent 3 whole weeks of him inside the box, and now he's finally outside the box.
Mhm.
um, and then of course this is a very classic Doctor Who of this era, anyways, I should say, ending. They've done it a couple times now, where the guests are like they are surprised to see the TARDIS go away, and it's a great little moment.
Yes.
Okay, Ben. I think that's gonna be it for Carnival of Monsters. We have the ratings now, Ben. What would you rate Carnival of Monsters?
That is a good question. Let me see. Is it better than the Three Doctors? I'm feeling a 8.3. What about you?
So, for the audience at home that is listening to this, that is just 1% lower than the Three Doctors for you. But you still have the episodes like The Mind of Evil and Spare from Space above the also above the Carnival of Monsters. But then you have stories like uh doo, 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 like the Time Monster and the Terror of the Autons below it.
Yeah.
I see this is the problem. I'm just like, all right, do I like this more? Like, I'm having a similar dilemma than you have. I was just like, all right, how do I rate this in terms of the Three Doctors? And I think that this first pod is much stronger than anything in the Three Doctors
Mhm.
in terms of just like a story overall. So I'm gonna rate this higher than the Three Doctors because I do like the ideas in this story a lot, even though I think it is kind of there's some issues with
Like
it.
overall, it is probably a stronger story than the Three Doctors, but I don't want to. I want the Three Doctors to be better than it is. I want Troughton.
I'm gonna go the same exact score for the demons. I'm gonna do 8.7.
That's respectable.
Okay. So in the ratings, Ben, we every week we just
Don't forget to hit enter.
oh yep. Every week we would discuss how it's like with the Doctor Who magazine poll, just to see how our thoughts is in line with the Doctor Who community as a whole.
It's pretty up there, isn't it?
It's number 7 in the recent poll, but before this, it ranked at number 10 consecutively from 1998, 2009, and 2014. So just in the
Hmm.
past couple of years, since I would imagine the Blu-ray release is the outlier here, right? That fans would have got the Blu-ray and would have
Yeah.
enjoyed it on Blu-ray, and they would have said, you know what, this story is better than I thought it was, so then they would have given it a higher rating. I think um, one of the big things is that this is higher than Terror of the Autons and the Sea Devils, which both me and you, I would say, pretty much agreed that this is better than both of those stories.
Yeah.
Um, and it's higher than Doctor Who and the Silurians and Day of the Daleks, which all makes sense for me and you in terms of ratings. The Three Doctors is higher than this. The Damons is higher than this. Bearhead, of course, is higher than this. And of course, Inferno is still number one. But yeah, I think it deserves to be above the current position that it's in. which is higher than the Sea Devils and Terror of the Autons, which a couple of years ago it
What's the
was
number 6?
number 6 is the Time Warrior. Well, that's gonna be next. That's gonna be Robert Holmes'
Gotcha.
contribution next season.
Gotcha.
So I think personally it deserves to be in that 8th spot and not in sorry, number 7th spot and not in the 10th spot. Because I do think that the Sea Devils and Terror of the Autons is not as good as the story. And judging by your ratings, you think the same.
I would agree completely.
Okay. Join us next week. Next week we're going to be doing Frontier in Space. We're going to see the last of
Yes.
Roger Delgado's Master.
It's very sad.
But like always, please remember to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and please, you're already checking this out on your podcast service, but please remember you can follow us. You can follow us on any podcast service. It doesn't have to be the one you're listening to right now. If you're watching on YouTube, you can listen to us on Spotify or YouTube Podcast or even Overcast if that's your choosing. Goodbye, everybody.
Have a wonderful day.